Hello and welcome back to the Mountain Men YouTube channel. Now we're going to be doing something a bit different today, as we do every day. We're always doing something different. Today we are moving away from the southwestern front and moving to the western front as we talk about Verdun. If you've been following the channel, you'll know from May 1915, when the Italians declared war on the Austrians, the Alpenkorps spent most of their time in Italy, carrying out mostly defensive actions. Now, of course, there were bloody battles there, as there were in all theatres of war during World War I. But it was mostly defensive, as we know now that the Germans weren't supposed to be in Italy, as they had not declared war on the Italians. When they get to the Western Front, they need to be trained in trench warfare. This is done by Pioneer Battalion 5, the Roar Battalion, which are like the famous stormtroopers. They're the ones who got all the Gucci kit when it came to helmets, flamethrowers. These lot, they knew trench warfare, and in the Champagne sector, the Vosges, a bit of a quieter front is where they carried out their trench warfare training for soldiers going to the Western Front. Now, this training didn't take too long. I believe it was only about 2 weeks. And later on, the Live Regiment would write in their histories, it was not enough to prepare them for what they were about to face. Verdun is infamous for being one of the deadliest battles of World War I. And what we're going to do now is dive into what they would have worn going in. So usually when I do these videos, we start off covering the inaccuracies. For once, I don't have any, thankfully. What I will mention though is my gas mask setup I'm not entirely happy with, and that will be replaced. And the cover for my canteen, although the canteen itself is original, the cover and the attachment system I took off my old canteen. So it does the job. I think it's something worth upgrading in future. So first things first, let's talk about headgear, because this is the most interesting part in my opinion, because there's quite a lot of headgear that you can wear. Now, of course, at the start of the war, mostly pickelhaubes and field caps. This kit is mostly based on a drawing, which I know is like a big no-no, but combat pictures, especially in World War I, are quite hard to come by, except maybe training, but training doesn't give you like the full picture. There was this drawing from the Live Regiment, and there are plenty of pictures, you can see it, where you have both Stahlhelms and pickelhaubes in action. With my pickelhaube, what I've done is I've attached the Edelweiss to it. It's not entirely common, but it does happen. Now, the Edelweiss was only given to veterans of the Italian front at the start. With how Verdun would go, there weren't many of them left, so people kind of just started putting it on their kit, and it became an overarching symbol of the Alpenkorps. But given that my kit is that of an Unteroffizier, I think it would be appropriate to wear the Edelweiss at Verdun. But of course, the pickelhaubes, though they were around, they were mostly supplanted by the M16 Stahlhelm. We have made a longer video on it if you want to know more about the history of the Stahlhelm. But really, at the start of 1916, they weren't all that common. They were producing them in the millions, yes, but they were all going to the Western Front. So a story that I've heard is when the Alpenkorps moved east after Verdun, they actually had to give up their Stahlhelms and went back to pickelhaubes. In pictures, in the drawings, etc., you do see both being in use. So I've got both set up depending on what I'm feeling like. But of course, you're not always going to be wearing hardcover, because like after a long day can be uncomfortable. So you need to think about soft cover. Now, what I have here is your standard Kretchen, Feldmutter, whatever you'd like to call it, pork by hat even, I've heard it called. Yeah, everyone was issued these, all the other ranks, like soldier all the way up to like sergeant, you'd be issued them, you'd keep them. But What NCOs can do is private purchase a crusher's cap, which look really cool. It's like certainly an aesthetic that goes with the German army in World War One. The thing with it is, I'm not too confident they were worn at the front. You do see a lot of the time just the usual Kretchen being worn. You don't often see crushers being worn at the front. It's more of a walking out kit, you know, so when you're going out on the town, you look smart. The thing with the crushers is, you know, peaked caps are mostly reserved for officers. So really, if you're wearing a crusher, it just means you're a bit of a target. You know, a French sniper is going to see that and think, oh yeah, he's the boy in charge, I'm going to target him. So when you're in the front, you'd probably want to wear Feldmütze. Of course, I wouldn't doubt that there were people who wore their crushers at the front just because they wanted to look cool. But for the most part, self-preservation comes first. Something I don't have on my creation is the camo band. That's probably something worth getting next. The red does stand out. But that's it on headgear. Moving down to what I'd be wearing for my tunic. I've gone for a Bavarian factor model, which is like a wartime simplified version. All that means in terms of Bavarians, it's a bit different to the Prussians, as always. It just means my cuffs are bare. They still got the rank braid, they just don't have the buttons. It's quite annoying, to be honest, when researching Bavarian. They started off, like the Live Regiment specifically, started off with Swedish cuffs. They then went to Brandenburg cuffs in 1913, just before the war. So whether or not they had some stores that they were handing out, you might get away with both in 1914. But yeah, so they started with Swedish, got brought in line with the rest of the army, where infantry regiments had Brandenburg cuffs. And then, of course, 1915, late 14, early 15, you've got simplified models. Yeah, cuffs are confusing. But this is based off of an image. I do talk more about my tunic in a short. Shoulder boards also don't have piping. Really, I could have just had white piping, as early in the war, your piping colour depended on your, I believe, army group. Could be wrong on that. We'll put a correction in if I am. But depending on what army you're a part of, depended on the colour of your shoulder straps. Later in the war, this would all be aligned so that all the infantry were white, pioneers were red. You know, different troops had different colours. But there was a time, 15, 16, where they were just given blank shoulder boards without the different piping colour. So that's what I've gone for. In terms of the collar, you've got the Bavarian braid, introduced in 1916. Now this was introduced for the Bluse, which is another tunic type. It was introduced on the Bluse for Mannschaften and above, but NCOs and officers tended to have them put on their earlier models of tunics, because generally they were private purchase and privately tailored, so they kind of did what they want. So I've got that. I've got the subdued NCO's braid, which looks very nice, and of course I've got the shorter style Litzen to denote that it's the Live Regiment. Really, the beauty of a mid-war battle like Verdun, when it comes to reenacting, there's nothing beautiful about it, it was horrible, but when it comes to reenacting, is that it was really a crossroads of all different tunic types. You can wear, you know, a 1913 tunic, a 1907 tunic, you do see some of them about, the simplified tunics, the Bluse, you know, all of it kind of came together. So that's the tunics. In terms of trousers, I've gone for stone grey, though I'm told that stone grey, though they did get them, they weren't actually too popular with the Bavarians. But off the information I was going on at the time, I've just gone stone grey, as that was what I thought was popular. Whether or not it is, I don't know. Of course, putties. Again, a myth that we got told, at least when I was going in school. We were told the Germans had tall boots and they went to low boots because of leather shortages. I believe that's a complete myth. While leather shortages were a problem, the Germans weren't a big fan of putties. I've spoken about it quite a few times before, but they believed that it would just constrict blood flow in your legs, which may be true, but then surely they work like compression socks. I don't know. But really, early war, 1915, you only really see the Alpenkorps using them. Later war, it becomes more of a mix. Everyone was issued before the war with low boots and putties. I think they didn't like to use them on the march, maybe, which is probably why it's called like March Stiefel, because it's marching boots before the march. Just a theory, but yeah, if you're doing Alpenkorps, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be wearing low boots, putties. And speaking of my low boots, it's quite an interesting one. I've got the 1888 Austrian pattern mountain boots. Now, the Germans didn't have their own mountain boots until the 1917 pattern, which they used all the way from World War One, all the way through the Second World War. But because I do both German and Austrian, I've elected to go for the 1888 boots. The reason I have, Verdun, not very mountainous, but you do see lads still wearing their mountain boots. They're good boots, and if they work, they work. There's no point in buying, more boots, and for all they know, they might be going back to the mountains soon enough, and this is just a stop-off on the Western Front, because they are the Alpenkorps after all. So, mountain boots I would recommend. If not, 1893 side lace. I think there's 1914 is the other pattern, which are just more like conventional boots. You can wear them as well. Usually, like with a kit, you kind of want to tell a story with your kit. Being like an NCO, I've got a lot of mountaineering related kit. Then it kind of tells the story that, oh yeah, he fought in Italy, then got moved to Verdun. So that's kind of what I've focused on with this kit. So moving on, let's talk about gas warfare. Gas warfare really became a big thing in 1916, and I'm carrying both the 1915 gummy mask bag and the later tin. The tin does fit in the bag with a spare filter. Much like today, filters only have a certain amount of uses and you have to replace them. So I've got my spare filter sat in the bag. You do see them both being worn until you get the longer 1917 tin, which I believe was for the leather mask, and it should have a spare filter inside the longer tin. Based on the drawing that I'm going off of, these were worn on the front. It's quite handy to have the gas mask bag in the back where you can also store some other effects. It's just an extra bag at the end of the day. And that's really all CBRN kit you'd not CBRN, CB kit. There's no nuclear back then. But that's the extent of the gas kit. Now, ammunition. Usually in warfare, when it's like an open field skirmish, you don't actually go through that much ammunition. Usually it's a lot of waiting around and it's full force and then it's quiet. But when it comes to a battle like Verdun, where you're assaulting, it's more of a siege, if anything. You're going up against these forts, you're going to need a lot of ammunition. So usually you'd have bandoliers, which serve very easy access for ammunition. You'd have the bandoliers as well as your regular issue of ammo. I'm not sure if it is mostly just for ease of access. I mean, I think it's a lot better than using the pouches. I wear both because again, that's what I've seen in the pictures. Of course, we've got standard 1909 pouches. In the pictures of Italy that I've seen, you see a lot of the earlier 1895 pouches, though when it comes to Verdun, I've not actually seen too much of that. So up next we've got the usual field spade bayonet ensemble with an NCO's troddle or bayonet knot. Obviously I've got the Bavarian one. You do see on Nestoff one that is just a blue version of the Prussian one, like the black's replaced with blue. I don't think that's correct. I've been told it's not correct, though one of my books has labelled one like that, but I've not actually seen in like the original documentation that laid out. There's like usually a good picture that shows all the different states. That's what I've gone off for this. Had to scour eBay for it, but it's very good to have. Really brings the kit together. Then for my bread bag, I've gone for the ersatz bread bag, just because I like the look. Again, it's like, story I want to tell with my kit. You're probably better off having the brown ochre one. I've just gone with this for aesthetics. I have used the brown ochre strap, but that's because my other strap is being used for this, a Sturmgepäck. Lads in my group know that I am a certified Sturmgepäck hater. You do get different types. You get this kind of backpack style, which is horrific. And you also get the over-the-shoulder type. Though the over-the-shoulder type, you only really see early war. Like Belgium, France in 1914. By Verdun, they were using this backpack style. I don't find them comfortable. Maybe I'm doing it wrong, but yeah, that's a Sturmgepäck. If you want to see a video on how to make a Sturmgepäck, both the over-the-shoulder and the backpack style, please do let me know in the comments. It is quite a handy thing to know. In your Sturmgepäck, usually you'd have your trench coat, and of course it's wrapped in your Zeltbahn square. I guess if you're expecting to do a load of fighting and then if it goes into night time, it might get a bit chilly. You might want to put your greatcoat on. Well, that's my only theory as to why they'd carry that. And then, of course, belt buckle. Couldn't find a steel one, so I've just painted a brass one. Repro, of course. And yeah, it looks good for 1916. And then finally, mentioned it earlier, my bottle. It's an original 1915 bottle in a Soldier of Fortune cover and leather work. Now the keen eye among you will have noticed all my webbing is brown, and you would have thought, oh, in 1915 the Prussian War Ministry put out an order to blacken web gear. That was the Prussian War Ministry. The Bavarians didn't put out such an order, and it's a lot more here or there whether or not the Bavarians blackened their kit. I'm sure because you would have been fighting alongside Prussian regiments, Württembergish regiments. I'm not sure if they got the order as well. And people would have thought, oh yeah, that's a good idea. So some units might have done it, some individuals might have done it, but until I can find out anything saying otherwise, I've just gone for the brown website. Then last but not least, the most important part is your rifle. I've got the sling set up in a parade position just for ease at the moment. But the Bavarian 98, it's a very handy rifle. Now, if you look at pictures of the Alpenkorps, you notice most of them have carbines, which I love the Kar 98 AZ. It's a beautiful carbine, and yeah, I mean, they're both Mausers at the end of the day. You can't go wrong with a Mauser. The issue is there's one regiment in the Alpenkorps that did not use the Kar 98 AZ. And of course, it was the Leib Infantry Regiment. So yeah, we use G98. Classic roller coaster sights, standard Mauser action. This one's deactivated. still very smooth. This particular rifle is a Danzig 1917 production. So it's got a few later war additions, like the hand grooves and the takedown disc as opposed to the unit disc. The previous owner has painted the action black. I believe it's paint, it seems like paint. And the barrel bands and all that. It's quite interesting, that. No idea why, but that's how it is. But yeah, it's a very nice rifle. It's not too heavy. It's a bit long. I'm an ardent believer on the universal short rifle. But yeah, there's not much you can really say about good old classic Mauser rifle. So now that we've had a look at the kit, the last thing to do is put it all together and try it out. So I'll see you outside. Final thoughts. That was good fun, wasn't it? Yeah, no, this is the kit. It's that really good crossroads between, rather modern to Victorian. Not quite as modern as the British and the American kits at the time. Not quite as Victorian as the French. It's that nice little middle ground where it's really interesting and really fun to put together. The Sturmgepäck, as much as I slated it earlier on, once you've got someone to help you put it on and size it off properly, it's not so bad. It's still not my favourite thing, I still don't understand them, but with the Stahlhelm on, with the Sturmgepäck, it really just adds to that aesthetic, and it's just a really interesting look, really iconic look for the war. But that is all we have time for today. Please do follow us on Instagram and on Facebook if you want to see more pictures. Be sure to comment. If I've got anything wrong, let me know. If you want any more information, don't be afraid to ask. Be sure to like and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye. Shut up, Ma.